Welcome to today's deep dive, where we're going to explore a really intriguing stack of business transformation documents with you.
Yeah, I am super excited to dig into this one. It's quite the blueprint we have today.
It really is. And, today's mission isn't just about exploring some flashy new tech. We're looking at a strategy for capturing actual human brilliance and, well, turning it into a permanent organizational asset.
Exactly. We're pulling this from a fascinating series of 3 presentation decks. They're all pitching a concept called the Flow Intelligence Platform.
Right. And just to give you a quick lay of the land, one deck covers the vision, another maps out the execution, and the third one digs into the economics.
But for our focus today, we are going to anchor our discussion heavily on that first presentation, the one titled Mastering Throughput via Digital Twins and AI.
Yeah, that's the one. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because the current state of business operations described in these sources is, honestly, it's pretty terrifying when you think about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they highlight this massive pain point where operations rely incredibly heavily on localized decision-making, manual calculations, and, just an ungodly number of interconnected spreadsheets.
Right, like imagine a massive manufacturing operation doing $500 million in revenue. You walk the factory floor, everything looks incredibly solid. Giant machines pressing steel, automated vehicles moving pallets.
It feels unstoppable.
Exactly. It feels like an unstoppable physical force. But then the guy who runs the master production schedule, he decides to go off the grid for a 2-week fishing trip.
And chaos ensues.
Utter chaos. Suddenly, components are piling up in the wrong work centers. Priority orders are missing their shipping windows. The entire multi-million-dollar operation just starts grinding to a halt.
Because the real engine wasn't the machinery at all?
Nope. It was the uncodified knowledge trapped inside that one master planner's head. The sources explicitly state this as a massive risk. The operational knowledge is entirely concentrated in key individuals.
Yeah, it's a fragile status quo. Most leadership teams don't even realize the extent of their vulnerability until, say, a key person retires.
Or a supply chain shock happens. It's like running a multi-million-dollar airline, relying entirely on one pilot's gut feeling.
That is a perfect analogy.
But I do have to push back a little here. If these spreadsheets are working today, if the business is profitable right now, why fix what isn't broken? Why take on the risk of overhauling it?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the source material actually reframes that exact question. It forces you to look at what the true competitive advantage actually is.
Okay, how so?
So executives usually look at their balance sheet, right? And they think their advantage is their proprietary machinery or their massive inventory,
Sure, the physical assets.
right? But the pitch clarifies that the real opportunity is not just automating transactions. It's not about making a faster ledger.
Okay.
The company's true competitive advantage is their underlying understanding of flow, constraints, dynamic bustle management, and throughput.
So the logic itself.
Exactly. It's automating decision support. To protect this advantage as the business grows, that human understanding has to be digitized. You can't just clone the veteran planner.
Right. Intuition doesn't scale. If you want to double throughput, you need a system, which leads us directly into the foundational build of this flow intelligence platform.
Yeah, moving from the vision to the actual architecture.
So what exactly are they building? The documents outline the creation of a single source of operational truth, a digital twin.
And just to clarify, we aren't talking about like a 3D visual model of a factory where you can see little digital forklifts driving around.
Oh, right, yeah. The sources note phase 1 of the implementation plan is building a working mathematical representation, and they start with a very specific slice, exactly 126 products.
Yes, for those 126 products, this twin maps out all the product routings, the exact work center capacities, and the dynamic inventory buffers.
It's establishing that baseline reality because, if you apply advanced management logic to a flawed data set, you're just automating chaos, right?
Absolutely, you just make bad decisions way faster.
So once that digital twin exists, they move to phase 2. This is where they encode the theory of constraints, or TOC intelligence.
Right, the decision engine itself. This means taking the logic and automating throughput prioritization, constraint protection, and dynamic buffer management.
Let's talk about dynamic buffer management for a second, because I found that fascinating,
Yeah, it's a huge shift. Traditional inventory systems treat safety stock like a rigid wall. You always keep 100 units on a shelf no matter what.
which ties up capacity.
Exactly. But a dynamic buffer acts more like a shock absorber on a car.
Right, so if the pothole in the road is a supply delay or a machine breakdown.
The shock absorber compresses. It absorbs that variability so the continuous flow of production doesn't actually feel the impact. If a machine runs fast, the system shrinks the buffer. If a supplier is late, it expands it.
Oh, automatically.
Yeah, it calculates these adjustments continuously A human just doesn't have the bandwidth to do that for thousands of parts.
Which brings up something super relatable for you, the listener. Think about your own business. How many times do we make business promises we just can't keep?
Oh, all the time.
Right. And B2B manufacturing, missed delivery dates are brutal. So in phase 3, the platform introduces the delivery commitment engine.
This is where it gets really practical.
It takes customer orders, evaluates the available capacity and material in the digital twin, and then actually recommends a delivery date with a confidence level.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the immediate business benefits here are massive. You get improved customer service, significantly reduced expediting costs, and you move from assumption-based promises to fact-based commitments.
No more salespeople just saying, standard lead time is 4 weeks when the factory's completely backed up.
Exactly. And they even take it a step further with the platform simulation laboratory.
Oh yeah, the sandbox.
Right. Management can use this to test decisions before spending capital. They can inject a 20% demand spike into the simulation and just watch how the TOC logic reroutes everything.
That is incredible. But, up to this point in our deep dive, we haven't even mentioned the biggest buzzword of the decade.
Oh, yes. Artificial intelligence.
Right. Which kind of begs the question, where does AI actually fit into this vision? Usually, tech pitches lead with AI on slide 1. They scream, look at our AI.
Yeah, they really do.
Wait, so they are bearing the lead here. Why isn't this pitched as a massive AI project?
So the mandate from the third presentation, the economics deck, is super clear on this. And I think it's brilliant. It explicitly says the objective is not to build an AI system. The objective is to build a management capability that becomes smarter every day.
Okay.
AI is simply one of the tools that enables that capability. If you make AI the goal, you end up with expensive neural networks just searching for problems to solve.
Optimizing local processes that don't actually improve overall flow.
Exactly. So they deploy it very strategically.
Yeah, according to the sources, there's a dual role for AI here. First, AI actually helps build the system. They use generative AI for document generation, database design, and even software coding.
Which accelerates the timeline and lowers the cost tremendously.
Right, you don't need an army of engineers mapping out routings for 2 years. Then the second role is where it interacts with the live operation predictive and prescriptive intelligence.
This is the proactive part. The core TOC engine manages today's reality, but the AI forecasts tomorrow.
Like forecasting demand and predicting shortages.
Yeah, predicting future bottlenecks before they happen. If it sees a subtle shift upstream that's going to starve a critical machine next Thursday, it prescribes a solution today.
It recommends dynamic buffer adjustments to neutralize the threat, and that culminates in phase 7, which I found amazing, the conversational intelligence.
The management co-pilot?
Yes. Management doesn't need to learn SQL or stare at complex dashboards. They can just ask the system natural language questions like, what threatens throughput next week, or why is this specific order delayed?
And the system parses the digital twin, runs the TOC rules, checks the predictive models, and just gives a plain language answer. It democratizes the intelligence.
It really does. But I mean, a vision this grand, it usually fails during implementation, right? The corporate graveyard is full of brilliant digital visions.
Oh, absolutely. The transition from vision to execution is incredibly risky. To understand how they actually plan to pull this off without it becoming a bloated IT disaster, we have to look at the execution roadmap.
Right, the second presentation deck.
Yes, they completely abandon traditional project management. Instead, the execution plan uses critical chain project management, or CCPM.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because traditional projects focus on task completion, right? Like, did the developer finish this one module on time?
Right, local optimization.
But CCPM focuses on flow. It eliminates multitasking and protects the critical chain. How do they actually protect the project from scope creep and failure, though?
Well, it directly attacks human behavioral flaws. Specifically, Parkinson's law, which says work expands to fill the time allotted, and student syndrome, which is waiting until the last minute to start.
Oh, I am definitely guilty of student syndrome.
We all are. Traditional planning adds hidden safety time to every task, which just makes those behaviors worse. CCPM strips that safety time out of individual tasks.
And pools it.
Exactly. It aggregates it into strict mitigation buffers at the end of project paths. The execution deck details 4 types of buffers.
There's the project buffer, protecting the final go-live date, and the feeding buffers, right?
Yeah, feeding buffers protect where non-critical paths merge into the main timeline, so the critical chain is never waiting on a side project.
And then there's the management attention buffer, which acts as a tripwire. If a phase uses too much buffer, executives are forced to intervene immediately.
They aren't waiting for a monthly status report.
Right. But what about the resource buffer? You mentioned that's for protecting the biggest vulnerability.
Yes, the resource buffer protects the ultimate project constraint. And the presentations identify this constraint explicitly. It's not a server or a budget limit, it's a human being.
Resource A.
Yes, Resource A, the TOC architect, this is the person holding all that deep institutional knowledge. They define the management logic. So the project to eliminate human bottlenecks is actually bottlenecked by a human.
Oh, the irony.
It is, but it proves why the project is necessary.
Right. And to manage this, they have phase 0, knowledge capture. It lasts 6 to 8 weeks before any code is even written.
And the success metric for phase 0 is uncompromising. It's not about how many interviews they did. It's only complete when 95% of the existing management logic is documented and validated.
Which brings us to the ultimate measure of success for the whole thing. The execution plan has a very vital rule.
Yes, success will not be measured by software completion.
Right.
If the software is deployed and the AI is chatting beautifully, but the factory isn't pushing more product out the door, the project is a failure. It is only measured by actual improvements in flow and throughput.
So what does this all mean when you look across the vision, the execution, and the economics? This isn't just a software upgrade.
No, not at all.
It's about capturing the organizational brain. The company's greatest asset isn't their machinery, it's their understanding of how to create flow. And once this localized, fragile knowledge is transformed into a permanent, continuously learning digital asset, it becomes a competitive advantage that is incredibly difficult for competitors to replicate.
They can buy the same machines, but they can't buy your proprietary flow logic.
Exactly.
But, this does leave us with a really provocative question to mull over.
Oh, what's that?
Well, think about it. If a company successfully digitalizes its entire operational logic, creates a perfect digital twin, and uses AI to predict every constraint, what then becomes the primary role of the human manager?
Oh, wow.
Right. Are we freeing them up to be true visionaries, finding new markets and innovating? Or are we simply making them the operators of the machine they used to be?
That is a profound shift. Moving from managing the physical floor to managing the digital brain, it really redefines modern leadership. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Flow Intelligence platform. And as always, keep seeking out those haha moments. You know that feeling when you're looking at a massive, incredibly complex spreadsheet that basically runs an entire department?
Oh, yeah. The one that everyone is terrified to touch.
Exactly. It's got macros built on top of macros, color-coded tabs that haven't meant a single thing since 2019, and this terrifying web of bootcups,
And if someone accidentally deletes just one cell,
like cell D14 or whatever.
right, the whole operation just grinds to a total halt. You're constantly one keystroke away from operational collapse.
It's insane, and usually only one person in the whole company truly understands how that file even works.
Yeah, the spreadsheet whisperer, when they go on vacation, everyone just holds their breath.
Right. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a stack of sources today that outlines something incredibly ambitious. It's a roadmap to permanently escape that exact spreadsheet nightmare.
Which is something a lot of listeners probably desperately want.
Oh, absolutely. We are exploring a proposal for building what they call a flow intelligence platform.
And what stands out immediately in these documents is the total absence of theoretical fluff.
Yeah, it's not just buzzwords.
No, not at all. We aren't looking at some dope marketing pitch about a shiny AI utopia.
Which companies love to sell, don't they?
Oh, constantly.
You know, that glorious future where artificial intelligence flawlessly runs your entire business while you're out playing golf.
Right, but our sources today represent the actual execution plan.
Exactly. We are moving way past the hype and getting down in the trenches with the CCPM implementation proposal.
It's a real step-by-step guide.
Yeah. Our mission here is to unpack exactly how a company transforms from relying on those fragile spreadsheets and, isolated human experts into a continuously learning automated digital powerhouse.
And the foundational premise they establish right up front is pretty brutal, but it's totally necessary.
How so?
Well, success for this project isn't measured by, writing a certain amount of code or just deploying a software package.
Right.
Success is exclusively measured by tangible, physical improvements in operational flow and throughput.
So actual results.
Exactly. I mean, if the IT department throws a huge party because they deployed the software, but the factory floor isn't moving products any faster,
Then the project is a failure.
a total failure.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we even get into the mechanics of building this platform, the sources insist on a massive mindset shift regarding how the project itself is managed.
Yeah, you have to manage the build differently.
Right. They mandate the use of CCPM, which is critical chain project management.
Yeah, and this is crucial because traditional project management is frankly, deeply flawed for complex builds like this.
Because it obsesses over localized task completion, right?
Exactly. It's all about, did you finish your piece of the code on Tuesday? Did the design team finish their mockups by Friday?
Everyone is just measured in total isolation.
Right. And CCPM strips all of that away. It focuses entirely on the continuous flow of the project.
Okay, so what does that actually look like?
Well, you systematically eliminate multitasking. You hyper-focus your resources on just one constraint at a time, and you protect the overall finish line using strategically placed project buffers.
Let me try to put an analogy on that. Um, Traditional project management is sort of like just checking items off a grocery list.
Okay, yeah?
You get the turkey, you grab the potatoes, you toss in the pot. You can do it in literally any order, and you feel productive just because you're checking
You're
boxes.
busy, but not necessarily efficient.
Right. But CCPM is like the actual cooking of a massive Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, I like that.
You don't care what exact minute the potatoes are peeled. You only care that the turkey, the gravy, and the sides are all steaming hot and ready to be served at the exact same moment.
Exactly. The flow of the meal is what matters, not just isolating individual tasks.
But how does focusing on quote unquote flow actually physically alter the day-to-day reality of a development team building a software platform?
What's fascinating here is that the software development is being governed by the very theory of constraints, or TOC principles, that the software is eventually going to digitize for the company.
Wait, really? That's super meta.
It is. To understand the day-to-day shift, you have to understand TOC. Imagine an operation as a series of water pipes, right?
Okay.
Each pipe has a different diameter. Water can only flow through the whole system as fast as the narrowest pipe allows.
That narrowest pipe is your constraint.
Exactly. So in software development, maybe your constraint is the senior database architect.
The one guy who knows how the whole database connects.
Right. Under CCPM, you stop that architect from attending random marketing meetings. You stop them from jumping between 5 different modules.
You just fiercely protect their time.
Yes. You subordinate the entire team's schedule to ensure that one narrow pipe always has water flowing through it.
That makes so much sense.
And you measure progress differently, too. You ask how much of your over and time buffer is left compared to how close the final product is to delivery.
You're literally building a system to manage operational bottlenecks by strictly managing your own development bottlenecks.
It's the only way it works.
So let's look at the execution roadmap itself. The very first hurdle is laying the bedrock.
Phase 0.
Right, because you can't optimize the flow of a factory or a service center if you don't actually know how the current messy system makes decisions.
You cannot predict the future until you have successfully digitized the present.
Yeah. So the roadmap tackles this in an initial phase focused entirely on capturing human knowledge. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks.
And the goal there is massive.
It is. The goal is to document 95% of the existing management logic, the current decision rules, and to literally dissect those fragile spreadsheets currently holding the operation together.
They are essentially extracting the operational physics from people's heads.
All the unwritten rules.
Yeah, the actual rules of how the business survives day to day.
Right. And then phase one is using that extracted logic to build a working digital twin, which takes another 8 to 12 weeks.
It's a huge undertaking.
We are talking about mapping out over 126 different products, alternate routings for how things are made, work center capacities, dynamic buffers.
It becomes the single undisputed source of operational truth.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because the sources highlight how dangerously concentrated knowledge is in key individuals. But I honestly have to push back a little on the feasibility of this step.
Okay, why?
Well, isn't trying to capture all the quote-unquote gut feelings of a 30-year operations veteran into a formal logic repository a massive, maybe even impossible bottleneck?
It sounds like it would be.
Right, because a floor manager doesn't use a clean decision tree. They just know that when it's humid outside, machine 3 acts up, so they run the material slower. You can't just code that intuition.
You're right, and trying to capture 100% of that intuition would absolutely stall the project indefinitely.
So what do?
Which is exactly why the roadmap specifically targets 95% operational accuracy, not perfection.
Oh,
They
okay.
are mapping the core routings, the standard processing times, and the primary constraints. But the strategic value of this phase cannot be overstated.
Even at just 95%.
Yes, this initial push capturing the knowledge and building that passive digital twin offers the lowest technological risk with the highest immediate organizational learning value.
Because you've essentially created a backup drive for your company's brain.
Precisely. Think about it. If the entire project gets canceled immediately after building the digital twin, and they never build the advanced engines or the AI.
The company has still secured its institutional memory.
Exactly. They have neutralized the risk of that veteran floor manager retiring and taking the company's throughput capability with them.
Wow. They've established actual data visibility. It's essentially an insurance policy on your operational capability.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, so assume we successfully pull that off. We have a perfect digital twin of the present.
The foundation is set.
Right. We know where every material is, how long it takes to process, and the rules governing it. The next major milestone in the documents phase 2 is moving from a passive map to an active brain.
This transition is where the platform shifts from merely observing the system to actively driving it
Right. They spend about 8 weeks building a TOC decision engine.
and automating the prioritization and buffer calculations.
And the success metric they set for this is wild. 100% automated priority generation.
It's completely hands-off.
Think about what that replaces. No more managers sitting in a chaotic morning meeting, drinking stale coffee, arguing over whose order gets built first.
Oh, those meetings are the worst.
The system just evaluates the digital twin, identifies the current constraint, and automatically calculates throughput priorities continuously.
Because a human mind simply cannot do that at scale.
Right.
When you introduce hundreds of products, each with alternate routings, meaning, if machine A is down, we can use machine B, but it takes 10 minutes longer, the math becomes totally impossible for a spreadsheet.
Or a human.
Right. The decision engine detects constraints dynamically, shift by shift, and reshuffles the deck instantly.
Which sets the stage for phase 3, which I think is the most powerful tool in the whole stack, the delivery commitment engine.
Yes, this takes about 6 weeks to build.
The sources outline a system that evaluates physical capacity on the floor against current inventory and existing commitments just to recommend delivery dates to the sales team.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the business stops fighting with itself.
Yeah, that internal friction.
Consider the classic, universal conflict in almost every manufacturing or service enterprise. The sales department wants to promise the customer the world just to secure the contract.
They'll promise anything.
Right. And then operations is handed a completely unrealistic deadline, and they have to burn out their team to try and meet it.
Think about your own workplace, wherever you are right now listening to this. How much of your week is spent arguing over whether a timeline is realistic?
Probably a lot.
Now, imagine having a system acting like a highly advanced air traffic controller. A salesperson enters a massive new customer order.
And instead of guessing,
Right. Instead of guessing or pressuring a manager, the system runs the order through the digital twin.
it checks everything.
Yeah, it checks material availability, it checks the dynamic buffers, it looks at the bottleneck pipe, and it spits out a recommended delivery date with an exact confidence level.
Based on physics, not hope.
It tells sales, we can hit this date, and the physics of our operation guarantee it.
It ends the culture of expediting. It ends the firefighting. Furthermore, it builds incredible credibility with the market.
Because you actually deliver when you say you will.
Exactly. When you quote a lead time, you deliver on that lead time because the promise was generated by operational reality, not a sales quota.
The confidence that must give an executive team is just huge. And it leads to a natural evolution in phase 4, the simulation laboratory.
This is where things get fun.
Yeah, an 8-week build. Because once the system can schedule the present, the roadmap outlines building an engine to test the what if.
Scenario planning.
Right. What if market demand spikes by 20% next quarter? What if a critical piece of machinery goes down for 2 weeks?
What if we acquire a competitor?
Exactly. And dump their entire product line into our factories. Management can stress test all these scenarios in the digital twin before they spend a single real-world dollar.
Decisions transform from assumption-based gambles to fact-based strategies. You don't have to debate what a 20% demand spike will do to your labor costs.
You just run the simulation.
You run it right through the delivery commitment engine and watch exactly where the flow breaks down. You find your future constraints before they even happen.
Okay, so we have covered an automated, simulating, highly intelligent digital twin. But notice what we haven't talked about yet.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence. And the sources emphasize that this sequencing is incredibly deliberate. AI is only introduced after the operational foundation and flow logic are locked in.
And that is a critical failure point for so many modern companies.
Putting the cart before the horse.
Exactly. If you apply advanced machine learning or AI to a flawed manual spreadsheet system or to a factory that doesn't understand its own constraints, you do not get a smarter business.
What do you get?
You just get bad decisions executed at light speed. The physics of the operation absolutely must be codified first.
Once that logic is rock solid, the roadmap moves into the AI evolution, which is phases 5 through 7.
Right, moving into predictive and prescriptive intelligence.
Phase 5 is predictive, phase 6 is prescriptive, and they take about 12 weeks each. We shift from just identifying current bottlenecks to actually forecasting demand, predicting raw material shortages based on global trends, and anticipating delivery risks weeks in advance.
That's the predictive side.
But then phase 6 is where the system actually starts prescribing solutions.
That is the leap from an analytical tool to a true management copilot.
Yeah, it doesn't just warn you.
Right. The platform doesn't just send an alert saying, we will have a bottleneck on the milling machine next Tuesday.
Right.
It says, we will have a bottleneck on the milling machine next Tuesday. Therefore, I recommend routing these 3 orders to an alternate facility today, which will preserve our throughput and maintain our delivery commitments.
It's helping you see tomorrow before it arrives, and it all culminates in phase 7, which is a 6-week build for a conversational intelligence interface
A natural language capability.
layered over the entire platform. As a manager, you wouldn't need to write secret queries or click through dense dashboards. You could literally just type or say, what threatens our throughput next week?
Or why is the Smith order delayed?
Exactly. And the AI answers you by instantly analyzing the digital twin.
It democratizes the data for everyone. But the author of these sources anchors this entire technological leap with a crucial observation.
What's that?
They explicitly state, quote, the objective is not to build an AI system. The objective is to build a management capability that becomes smarter every day.
Oh, that's good.
The AI is just a mechanism. The real goal remains protecting throughput and managing flow.
Because the technology is a tool, not the destination. I mean, it's so easy to buy AI just for the press release, but if it isn't driving flow, it's just an expensive toy.
Exactly.
But let's get back to reality for a second. We have this incredible 7-phase roadmap, but a plan is just a piece of paper. Massive IT projects derail all the time,
Oh, they turn into endless money pits constantly.
delivering half the features twice as late. So how do the sources plan to govern this massive beast to ensure it actually survives contact with the corporate environment?
This circles back perfectly to the CCPM philosophy we discussed at the start. You have to aggressively protect the project's flow.
So what does this all mean? How do they do that?
The first mechanism is identifying the project's critical resources.
Right, and the sources specifically call out the TOC architect as the primary constraint of the entire implementation.
Yes, this is the individual or a very small team who is responsible for defining that initial management logic, validating the decision rules, and approving how the digital twin behaves.
They are the guardians of the business logic.
And if the underlying flow logic is wrong, the predictive AI is entirely useless.
Makes sense.
Therefore, the entire schedule of developers, data engineers, and project managers must be subordinated to the availability of that TOC architect.
You do not want that architect waiting for data.
And you absolutely do not want developers sitting idle waiting for the architect to approve a model.
So to guarantee this, the proposal outlines a deeply structured buffer strategy because they don't rely on local safety.
Right. Local safety is what people normally do.
You know, when a task actually takes a week, but you tell your boss it takes 2 weeks just to be safe,
CCPM strips out all that hidden local padding.
instead they aggregate time into explicit buffers. They use project buffers to absorb delay at the very end of the timeline.
To protect the final completion date.
Right. They use feeding buffers at integration points. So if the database team is feeding work to the interface team, there is a buffer protecting that handoff.
Right.
And they use resource buffers to ensure the TOC architect is prepped and ready the moment a task needs their eyes. But the one that really caught my attention was the management attention buffer.
Ah, yes.
They define this as scheduled, protected monthly executive reviews. To me, it's a brilliant acknowledgement that executive focus is a finite, highly constrained resource that must be budgeted just like money or developer hours.
It really is. Executive attention is frequently the ultimate bottleneck in any large organization.
Oh, for sure.
Because if critical project decisions sit unread on a vice president's desk for 3 weeks because they're traveling or fighting other fires, your entire implementation stalls.
Yeah, you're dead in the water.
By formalizing a management attention buffer, you are treating their bandwidth as a critical chain resource. You are scheduling and fiercely protecting the time required for them to review and approve.
And what exactly are they reviewing in those meetings? Because executives love to tinker.
Oh, they do.
They love to ask, oh, can the software also do this? Can we add a shiny feature for the marketing team?
This raises an important question about mitigating the deadliest disease in software development, scoop creep.
Yes. How do they stop it?
The sources counter this by mandating strict binary phase gates.
Meaning the development team is physically not allowed to begin coding the TOC decision engine until the digital twin is fully verified.
Exactly that. At the completion of the digital twin phase, the executives consume their management attention buffer to review the progress.
And they ask one question.
Did the team achieve 95% operational accuracy? If the answer is no, the project does not advance.
Period.
If the answer is yes, they authorize the next phase. This governance structure ensures that each distinct phase delivers tangible operational value before the next one is even funded,
It's an incremental deployment.
which drastically reduces the risk of building a massive system that fails on launch day.
It forces the project to stay tied to operational reality. So we've traced this entire journey.
We really have.
We started with a fragile, manual, spreadsheet-heavy operation that relies entirely on the localized intuition of a few stressed-out experts.
Which is a terrifying way to run a business.
Truly. And we mapped out how to extract that knowledge, build a digital twin, automate priority decisions, simulate future constraints, and finally layer on predictive and conversational AI to act as a management co-pilot.
It's quite the evolution.
We went from the overarching vision straight into the trenches of execution.
But, there is a meta detail tucked into the introduction of these sources that recontextualizes everything we just discussed.
Oh, the third presentation.
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up.
The author notes that this entire CCPM implementation roadmap we just analyzed all 7 phases is only presentation number 2. Right, it is purely the how.
But they explicitly state that a third and final presentation is required before anything actually begins.
The economic case, the financial justification, and the throughput ROI model.
Exactly, because the author understands a harsh truth. Technically brilliant projects fail to get funded every single day.
All the time.
Not because the vision is poor and not because the execution roadmap is flawed. They fail because the champions of the project cannot answer the board's fundamental question.
Which is, why should we invest our limited capital in this platform rather than building a new factory or acquiring a competitor?
Right. Executives allocate resources based on expected economic impact.
If you cannot mathematically prove that replacing spreadsheets with a flow intelligence platform will generate significantly more throughput and dramatically increase revenue, the project dies in the boardroom.
The roadmap we just explored is merely the bridge between a visionary idea and a hardcore return on investment.
It acts as a grounding wire, basically, ensuring that the AI and the technology continuously serve the economic engine of the business rather than becoming just some science experiment.
Which is what happens to a lot of AI initiatives right now.
Exactly. Which brings up a fascinating, almost existential thought for you to ponder. If an enterprise successfully executes this roadmap,
Which is a big if, but let's assume they do.
right, if they extract all of their human operational intelligence into a digital twin, encode their management rules into a decision engine, and deploy AI to predict shortages and prescribe routing solutions with perfect logic,
It's a huge shift.
what is left for the human manager to actually manage?
That's the million-dollar question.
If the system is perfectly directing the flow of today, analyzing the constraints of tomorrow, and instantly answering complex questions, does the manager's role diminish into total obsolescence?
Or does it change?
Or does it finally free them from the daily grind of firefighting, allowing them to elevate into true architects of future growth? As you go back to your own workflows, take a hard look at the spreadsheets holding your team together and ask yourself, are you managing the flow of work, or are the constraints managing you?
A great question to leave on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time. Usually when we talk about a company's competitive advantage, there's this expectation of a heavily guarded secret, like a patented formula or some proprietary algorithm locked in a vault, right? But then you step onto the modern factory floor and suddenly that vault is just wide open.
Yeah, it really is, because when you look closely, you realize a company's greatest asset isn't a massive machine. It's actually this fragile, highly vulnerable web of manual spreadsheets, which is basically the absolute definition of operational risk.
Exactly. And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive for you today. We are unpacking the third and honestly the most crucial presentation of a flow intelligence platform proposal. It's called the Financial Justification and Throughput ROI model.
Right, because this is all about how you successfully pitch a really complex technical vision to executives. You have to translate all that tech purely into economic impact and strategic ROI, or they just won't listen.
Because executives allocate resources based on expected economic impact, right? I mean, to get their attention, you first have to expose the massive opportunity cost of their status quo.
Precisely. The current system relies so heavily on individual expertise and, manual calculations. If a machine goes down, you have like a handful of people scrabbling to update a dozen different spreadsheets.
It's a huge risk. It's like driving a high-speed race car while looking through a straw. You might survive the straightaways, but you absolutely cannot anticipate the turns.
That is a great way to put it. That concentration of knowledge limits scalability, and drastically slows down response times. So the real opportunity here isn't just using technology to automate basic transactions, like logging inventory.
Right. The massive ROI comes from automating decision support, using AI to instantly answer those dynamic questions on the factory floor, like, where is the constraint moving today?
Exactly. Or what delivery date should we promise on this order right now, and doing that faster and way more accurately than any human possibly could.
But I imagine the moment executives see the scale of that kind of AI solution, they naturally get defensive, right? Like they worry this will just turn into a bottomless IT money pit 'em.
Oh, absolutely. They see a huge AI project and panic. So you have to de-risk the financial investment through a phased rollout. You show them that every single step pays for the next one.
Wait, but by chopping the project into these bite-sized phases, don't we risk executive just, cutting the funding halfway through before we even get to the cool predictive AI stuff?
You'd think so, but no, they won't, because every single phase generates measurable throughput and flow improvements before the next one even begins. It practically funds itself.
Oh, wow. So they're seeing immediate returns at every gate.
Exactly. Take phase one, which is creating a digital twin that's essentially a real-time virtual replica of your factory floor. It takes all your scattered data and gives you immediate operational visibility.
So instead of relying on yesterday's reports, you suddenly see exactly where everything is right now, which sets you up perfectly for phase two, right? Bringing in the TOC decision engine.
Yes, the theory of constraints, because you can't manage a bottleneck if you can't actually see it. Since phase one gave you that real-time visibility, phase two uses that data to automate your operational priorities.
Meaning, if a machine breaks down, the engine instantly recalculates what everyone on the floor should work on next to keep the main bottleneck moving. No more 2-hour emergency meetings.
Right, the decision support is fully automated, and that logic flows perfectly into phase three, which tackles delivery reliability. You know where materials are, you're managing the bottlenecks so you can accurately predict when an order will finish.
Yeah, so you're proving financial value continuously, fewer late penalties, higher throughput, better cash flow. I mean, management isn't going to pull the plug on a system that's actively making them money.
Exactly. But beyond that immediate ROI, securing long-term executive buy-in requires an ultimate hook. You are pitching a long-term, uncopyable strategic advantage.
Which is taking all that localized individual expertise, all the knowledge currently trapped in the heads of your best planners, and transforming it into a permanent organizational asset.
Yes, that is the most crucial closing statement of the presentation. The objective is not to build an AI system. The objective is to build a management capability that becomes smarter every day.
That's brilliant. AI is merely an enabler to protect throughput because if you walk into a boardroom pitching technology just for technology's sake, you lose. You have to focus on business outcomes over technical jargon.
You absolutely have to speak their language. You have to make them realize the fragility of their current setup and how this platform systematically removes that risk.
Which brings us back to driving that race car looking through a straw. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If a company's core operational intelligence currently walks out the door every day at 5 p.m., what is the actual existential cost of not digitizing that knowledge today?
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are so glad you're here with us because today we're talking about something that honestly is going to fundamentally change how a lot of you work.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge shift.
Right. So I want you to imagine running a factory, and this factory makes, let's say, 126 different products.
That's a lot of moving parts.
Exactly. You have hundreds of workers, you've got dozens of specialized machines, raw materials are constantly shifting, and, customers are demanding their orders yesterday.
Right, the usual nightmare.
Yeah. Now imagine that the only thing keeping this entire massive operation from just total collapse is a single middle manager who has like 40 different Excel spreadsheets open on their desktop at once.
Which gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
Right. It's terrifying. But today, our mission is to look at what happens when you take all those spreadsheets away.
And we have a fascinating stack of corporate strategy presentations and project roadmaps to help us do exactly that.
Yeah, these sources detail the implementation of something called the Flow Intelligence Platform, and it relies heavily on critical chain project management, or CCPM, and the theory of constraints.
The TOC, right. And the main narrative across all these documents is this radical transformation of management roles.
It really is. It's not just a text story about software coming in to replace people, which is what you usually hear.
No, not at all.
It's actually a story about giving managers like an operational superpower, getting them out of the daily grind of manual firefighting, and turning them into visionary stewards of a continuously learning digital twin.
Exactly. But to really appreciate what managers are becoming, we kind of have to look at the painful reality of what they are right now.
Oh, the sources paint a very vivid picture of this, and it is painful.
It really is. I mean, currently, operations are just entirely dependent on localized decision making.
Yeah,
It's all about individual expertise, and as you mentioned, those multiple spreadsheets, it requires so much manual calculation and analysis just to keep the lights on every day.
which means all that vital knowledge is just concentrated in the heads of a few key individuals, right?
Exactly. And that severely limits scaling because as the complexity of the factory grows, predicting future constraints just becomes impossible for a human brain.
Okay, let's unpack this because the visual here is crazy. It's like trying to navigate a massive high-speed ship by having 10 different people running around the deck with calculators,
Yes.
and they're all just constantly shouting wind speeds and ocean depths at each other.
Right. They might keep the ship from hitting a reef today,
Yeah,
but nobody has the cognitive bandwidth to look at the horizon and see the hurricane that's forming for tomorrow. They're just too busy doing the math.
completely. And that's where the strategy shifts.
Right. And what's fascinating here is a core philosophy explicitly stated in that third presentation we looked at.
Oh, the one about the actual objective.
Exactly. It states that the objective is not to build an AI system. The objective is to build a management capability that becomes smarter every single day.
Right, so the technology is literally just the enabler.
Yes, the real goal is capturing the organization's collective knowledge so you can protect the flow of work and generate throughput.
Okay, but if management is throwing away their spreadsheets, what exactly replaces them?
Well, the foundation is what the documents call phase 0, which is knowledge capture, and phase 1, which is the digital twin.
The digital twin. I love that term.
It's a great concept. Basically, it's a working digital representation of the entire operation. So your products, routings, work centers, your inventory buffers,
Everything.
everything. It becomes the single source of truth. And their goal with this is like 95% operational accuracy.
Which is huge. But wait, let me push back on this for a second.
Sure.
If the digital twin and the software are doing all the complex math and the calculations, what do the middle managers actually do?
That's the million-dollar question.
Like, are they just sitting back in a chair watching a screen blink?
It sounds like that, right? But the experts emphasize that the managers don't disappear. They evolve.
Okay.
They turn into what the project calls Resource A, the TOC architect.
The theory of constraints architect.
Exactly. So instead of crunching data manually all day, their new job is actually defining the management logic itself.
Oh, wow. So they're the ones building the rules.
Right. They validate the decision rules, they approve the prioritization models, they define the dynamic buffer management.
I mean, think about your own job for a second, right? If someone asked you to just write down the exact mental algorithms you use to make your most complex decisions,
It's incredibly hard to do.
it's so hard. But that's literally what they're doing. They are encoding their human intelligence into the software.
Exactly. And once they do that, once these TOC architects have built the digital twin and encoded their rules, the day-to-day reality on the floor changes completely.
Right, because now you don't have to do the math yourself.
No, instead of manual analysis, management relies on the system to answer 8 sequential operational questions.
8 questions. Okay, let's go through these because they really map out the whole day.
They really do. So they start basic. Question 1, what should we produce?
Simple enough.
Question 2, when should we produce it? Question 3, where should we produce it?
Okay, so that's sort of untangling the current reality.
Right. Then question 4 asks, what should be prioritized? Question 5, what delivery date should we promise?
Which is always a massive headache.
Oh, huge. Then question 6, where's the constraint moving? Question 7, what inventory buffers need adjustment?
Okay.
And finally, question 8, what will happen tomorrow if today's conditions continue?
Here's where it gets really interesting because that last question, question 8, that completely shifts the entire paradigm.
Totally.
You go from just reacting to today's fires, right? Just trying to survive the shift to actually anticipating tomorrow's problems before they even happen.
Right. And AI becomes so incredibly powerful here because it can solve all these dynamic variables just far faster and more accurately than any human brain ever could.
Yeah, humans just don't have the processing speed.
Exactly. And a prime example of this is in phase 3, the delivery commitment engine.
Oh, this part of the roadmap was wild.
It really is. So imagine sales enters a new massive custom order.
Okay.
In the old system, a manager would have to guess the delivery date based on a bunch of disjointed spreadsheets.
And if they guess wrong, the whole factory panics next week.
Exactly. But with the delivery commitment engine, the system instantly evaluates the current inventory, the machine capacity, material lead
It's
time.
just cross-referencing everything in real time.
Yes, and it outputs a recommended delivery date with an actual statistical confidence level attached to it.
That is just, it's a game changer.
It really is.
And it naturally leads us to the future, right? Because if the system can tell us about tomorrow, the question is, well, how far ahead can management actually see?
Which brings us into phase 4, the simulation laboratory.
Yes. And phase 5 and 6, the predictive and prescriptive intelligence.
Right.
So my question when reading this was, how can managers use this to test like really wild ideas without accidentally breaking the actual factory?
Well, that's the beauty of the simulation lab. It allows managers to evaluate future scenarios and policy changes completely safely.
Big like a sandbox.
Exactly like a sandbox or a flight simulator, they can ask completely fact-based questions.
Like what?
Like, what if demand for our flagship product increases by 20%? Or what if our main welding machine fails for 2 days?
Or what if we buy a new machine and add capacity?
Yes, all of it. Decisions are no longer assumption-based, they are mathematically simulated.
Wow.
And furthermore, the predictive AI helps management see tomorrow before it even arrives by forecasting demand, predicting shortages.
Finding the bottlenecks before they form.
Precisely.
Okay, but we have this incredibly complex predicted engine doing all this heavy lifting.
Right.
How does a busy middle manager who's used to walking the floor, dealing with people, right? How do they actually access these deep mathematical insights?
Do they need a degree in data science?
Yeah, like do they have to learn SQL or something?
No, thankfully, and that's the culmination of the roadmap, which is phase 7, conversational intelligence.
Oh, okay.
The system basically becomes a management co-pilot interface.
A co-pilot.
Right. It provides completely natural language access to all that operational intelligence.
So they just talk to it.
Literally, managers can just pull up the interface and ask the system normal questions like, what threatens throughput next week?
Or why is the Smith order delayed?
Exactly. Or what is today's primary constraint? And the system just answers them.
It translates all that complex math into plain English.
Yes. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah, let's talk strategy.
the strategic value here is massive. The sources point out that a company's greatest asset isn't actually its machinery.
Or the inventory on the shelves.
Right. It's their understanding of flow, it's their operational logic.
That makes total sense. Anyone can buy the same machines as you.
Exactly. But by digitizing your specific logic, this capability becomes increasingly difficult for competitors to replicate.
It's a moat.
It is a sustainable competitive advantage that literally learns faster than the competition.
So what does this all mean for how they actually built this stuff? Because the development timeline in the sources was surprisingly short.
Yeah, that's a fascinating detail.
Because building a digital twin used to take years of coding and testing.
Right, but they are actually using AI to help build this very system,
Generating the documentation, designing the databases.
writing large chunks of the code.
It significantly reduces the development effort. They can roll out these phases in weeks or months instead of years.
Which is just a fundamentally different approach to technology implementation.
It really is. So just to recap this massive shift for you listening.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But basically, managers are no longer these localized spreadsheet firefighters.
Right.
They are becoming visionary TOC architects. They are running a simulation lab, and they're guided by a conversational AI co-pilot.
It's a complete evolution of the job.
And regardless of what field you work in, the future of work is really about this. It's about encoding your best logic into systems that scale rather than just pedaling faster and working harder.
Which is so important. And, this raises an important question.
Oh, what's that?
It's something to really chew on that isn't actually resolved in the sources.
Okay, I love these.
If a company successfully captures its best operational knowledge into
Yeah.
a system that continuously learns, what happens when the original human TOC architects retire?
Oh, the people who actually learned those hard lessons on the physical factory floor.
Exactly. As the system gets smarter and smarter, does the AI co-pilot eventually outgrow its role and become the captain?
Wow.
Or will human intuition, that messy, creative spark will that always be required to imagine the next level of flow?
That is a phenomenal question. Are we encoding our replacements or just building the ultimate tool we'll always need to wield?
It's a lot to think about.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you as much to think about as it did us. We will see you next time.